You're all welcome to today's news analysis. This is where we break things down clearly, honestly, and in a way every Nigerian can understand. If you care about justice, law, and the future of this country, subscribe now and turn on your notifications. Because what we are about to discuss is not small. This is serious. Ecowas, the Economic Community of West African States, has now called for proper monitoring and strict rule of law in the coming appeal court case of Nnamdi Kanu. This is not a routine statement. This is not a casual remark. This is a direct regional concern about how Nigeria will handle one of its most sensitive legal battles. You're all welcome to today's deep news analysis. This is where we break national issues down with clarity, facts, and balance so every Nigerian can understand what is truly at stake. If you value accurate updates and serious discussions, subscribe and turn on your notifications. Because developments like this do not happen every day, and when they do, they matter. Ecowas stepping into the conversation changes the weight of this case. It moves the matter beyond domestic debate and places it under regional attention. When a body made up of West African states speaks about rule of law and monitoring, it signals that the outcome of this appeal is being watched carefully across borders. Let us recall the background clearly. On the 20th of November, Nnamdi Kanu was sentenced to life imprisonment by Justice James Omotosho at the Federal High Court. The judgment marked a major turning point in a case that has already lasted years and generated strong reactions nationwide. Following the sentence, Kanu was moved to Sokoto Prison to begin serving that life term. A life sentence is the highest level of punishment within the system short of capital penalty. It means imprisonment for the rest of a person's natural life, unless overturned or reduced by a higher court. However, the legal process did not end there. Nnamdi Kanu personally appealed the life sentence. He challenged the judgment, taking the matter to the Court of Appeal. This step is fully within his legal rights. The appeal process allows a higher court to examine whether the law was properly applied, whether procedures were correctly followed, and whether the judgment was sound. Now, as that appeal approaches, Ecowas is urging proper monitoring and strict adherence to the rule of law. The regional body has emphasized the importance of avoiding any violation of human rights and ensuring that the proceedings meet legal standards. That statement carries meaning. Ecowas is not passing judgment on guilt or innocence. It is not directing the court to free or convict anyone. Instead, it is highlighting the importance of fairness, transparency, and legal compliance. In cases that carry political and social sensitivity, perception becomes as important as procedure. The credibility of the legal system depends not only on what decisions are made, but on how those decisions are reached. When Ecowas calls for monitoring, it reflects concern that the process must be clean and beyond reproach. It suggests that the coming proceedings should withstand both local and international scrutiny. Nigeria is a leading member of Ecowas. As one of the largest economies and most influential nations in the region, its judicial actions often carry symbolic weight. The handling of high-profile cases can affect diplomatic relationships, regional stability, and public trust. This appeal is therefore more than an individual legal challenge. It has become a test of institutional strength. The Court of Appeal now stands at the center of attention. Its responsibility is clear: examine the grounds of appeal carefully, review the lower court's reasoning, and deliver judgment based strictly on law and evidence. The appeal process is structured and formal. Lawyers will present arguments. Records from the High Court will be studied. Legal principles will be examined. Every step must align with constitutional standards. Ecowas calling for proper monitoring reinforces the expectation that no shortcuts, no irregularities, and no procedural gaps should occur. It reinforces the principle that justice must be administered in a way that protects rights while upholding national law. This development also reflects a broader reality. In today's interconnected environment, major legal decisions do not exist in isolation. They are observed, analyzed, and sometimes questioned beyond national boundaries. The life sentence delivered on November 20th was a decisive moment. The transfer to Sokoto Prison confirmed the enforcement of that judgment. But the appeal reopens legal questions. It introduces review. It introduces reassessment. And now, with Ecowas voicing concern for monitoring and rule of law, the coming appeal court session carries added gravity. The focus moving forward will be simple yet critical. Was the law applied correctly? Were procedures properly followed? Are constitutional protections fully respected? These are not political questions. They are legal questions. And the answers will shape not only the future of this case, but public confidence in the justice system itself. At this stage, attention has fully shifted to the appeal court, where the next legal phase of Nnamdi Kanu's case will be decided. The focus now is no longer on the initial judgment alone, but on whether that judgment followed the law in every required way. This is how the system is designed to work. When a person is convicted and believes there were legal errors, the Court of Appeal steps in to review the process. It does not simply repeat the trial. It checks whether the law was correctly applied, whether the rights of the accused were respected, and whether the decision of the lower court can stand under legal scrutiny. That is exactly where this case stands today. The life sentence delivered by James Omotosho at the Federal High Court is now under review. That decision was strong and final at the time, but an appeal changes the situation. It opens the door for legal questions to be examined again in detail. This is important to understand clearly. An appeal is not about emotions. It is not about public opinion. It is strictly about law. The judges at the appeal court will focus on arguments presented by both sides. They will look at records, procedures, and legal reasoning. Every step taken during the original trial can be questioned. Now, with Economic Community of West African States calling for proper monitoring, the process carries even more weight. This is because the case is no longer seen as just an internal matter. It has drawn attention from outside Nigeria, and that attention brings higher expectations. Ecowas has made one point very clear: the rule of law must be followed strictly, and human rights must not be violated. That statement speaks directly to the integrity of the process. It means that the appeal court must ensure that everything is done properly, from legal arguments to final judgment. There must be no room for doubt. There must be no sign of unfairness. The outcome must be based only on law and evidence. This is where the situation becomes very serious. Nigeria's judicial system is now under close observation. Not because of pressure to decide in a certain way, but because of the need to prove that the system works as it should. The appeal court has several possible paths. It can uphold the life sentence if it finds that the original judgment was correct and followed all legal standards. It can overturn the sentence if it finds serious legal errors. It can also order a retrial if it believes the process at the High Court level was flawed in a way that cannot be ignored. Each of these outcomes carries consequences. If the sentence is upheld, it confirms the strength of the original judgment. If it is overturned, it raises questions about how the case was handled earlier. If a retrial is ordered, it means the case is far from over and will return to the lower court for fresh proceedings. This is why the current moment is critical. Legal teams on both sides are expected to present strong arguments. Every detail matters. Every legal point matters. There is no room for weak presentation at this level. At the same time, public attention remains high. Nigerians across different regions are following the case closely. Opinions are divided, and emotions are involved, but the court must remain focused only on the law. That is the responsibility of the judiciary. The presence of Ecowas in this conversation adds another layer. It reinforces the idea that justice must not only be done, but must be clearly seen to be done. It highlights the importance of transparency and fairness, especially in cases that attract national and regional attention. It also sends a message about standards. Nigeria, as a key member of Ecowas, is expected to uphold legal principles that align with regional expectations. This includes respecting human rights, following due process, and ensuring that court decisions are based on solid legal grounds. The appeal court proceedings will therefore go beyond a simple legal review. They will reflect how strong and reliable the system is under pressure. At this point, nothing is decided. The life sentence still stands, but it is under challenge. The legal battle is active, and the outcome remains uncertain. What happens next will depend entirely on what is presented in court and how the judges interpret the law. One thing is clear. This is a defining moment, not just for the individuals involved, but for the credibility of the judicial process in Nigeria. The final phase of this situation now rests on what happens next at the appeal court, and the implications go far beyond a single judgment. What is at stake is not only the legal future of Nnamdi Kanu, but also the level of confidence Nigerians have in the judicial system as a whole. At this point, the case has already shaped national conversation. It has influenced political discussions, legal debates, and public opinion across different parts of the country. The life sentence delivered on November 20th created a strong reaction, and the transfer to Sokoto Prison confirmed that the judgment was being fully enforced. However, the appeal has introduced a new phase. Legally, an appeal means that the decision is not final. It means the judgment is open to review, and that review must be handled with precision. The appeal court now carries the responsibility of determining whether the earlier ruling can stand under strict legal examination. This responsibility is heavy. The judges must remain neutral. They must ignore public pressure, political narratives, and emotional reactions. Their duty is to the law alone. Every argument presented before them must be weighed carefully. Every legal point must be tested. At the same time, the involvement of the economic community of West African states has increased the level of attention on this process. The call for proper monitoring and strict adherence to the rule of law means that the proceedings are no longer viewed as routine. There is now a wider expectation. The expectation is that the process will be transparent, disciplined, and fully aligned with constitutional principles. Any sign of irregularity could raise concerns, not just within Nigeria, but across the region. This is why the concept of justice becomes central. Justice is not only about the final decision. It is also about the process that leads to that decision. If the process is clear, fair, and lawful, the outcome is more likely to be accepted, even by those who may disagree with it. If the process appears flawed, the outcome becomes difficult to trust. This is the balance the appeal court must manage. The legal possibilities remain open. The court may decide to uphold the life sentence, confirming that the original ruling by James Omotosho followed due process and legal standards. It may decide to overturn the sentence if it finds that there were significant errors in how the case was handled. It may also order a retrial, which would send the case back for a fresh hearing under corrected procedures. Each outcome carries weight. Each outcome sends a message. If the sentence is upheld, it signals continuity and confidence in the High Court's decision. If it is overturned, it signals correction and the importance of legal accuracy. If a retrial is ordered, it signals that justice requires a complete reset in order to be properly achieved. Beyond the courtroom, the national impact cannot be ignored. This case has already tested public trust. It has raised questions about fairness, rights, and the strength of institutions. The next decision will either rebuild that trust or deepen existing concerns. This is why discipline within the judicial process is critical. The law must be applied without fear or favor. Procedures must be followed without shortcuts. Rights must be respected without exception. These are the foundations of a functioning legal system. Nigeria, as a leading nation in West Africa, carries a level of responsibility. Its legal decisions often set examples within the region. The involvement of Ecowas reflects that reality. It shows that actions taken within the country can influence perceptions beyond its borders. At this moment, the situation remains unresolved. The life sentence is still in place, but it is not beyond challenge. The appeal is active, and the final outcome will depend entirely on legal reasoning and judicial interpretation. There is no confirmed direction yet. There is no final answer yet. What exists now is a process in motion. A process that must be handled carefully. A process that must be handled correctly. Because when the appeal court delivers its decision, it will not only close a legal chapter. It will also define how justice is viewed in Nigeria at a critical time. The next development will depend on how quickly the appeal court moves and how thoroughly the legal arguments are presented. Every filing, every response, and every submission will play a role in shaping the final outcome. Nothing at this stage can be taken lightly. The legal teams involved understand the weight of this moment. They are expected to examine every detail from the earlier proceedings, identify possible errors, and defend their positions with clear legal backing. This is not a routine appeal. This is a high-level legal test. For Nnamdi Kanu, the stakes remain extremely high. The life sentence is still active, and until any new judgment is delivered, that remains the legal position. At the same time, the appeal represents a window for review, a window for possible change. The role of the court is now critical. The judges must ensure that all arguments are heard fully. They must take time to examine the facts, the law, and the procedures followed at the lower court. Rushed decisions at this stage could create more questions than answers. With the economic community of West African states emphasizing monitoring and rule of law, expectations remain high. The process must be steady, careful, and fully aligned with legal standards. There is no room for doubt. Across Nigeria, attention remains fixed on what comes next. The outcome will not only affect the case itself, but also shape public confidence in the system. For now, the situation remains open. The process continues, and the final decision is still ahead.